The man who dies for the progress of knowledge or the healing of diseases is serving life even as he dies. I think that's a powerful quote.
Yeah.
And now onto the warfare. It may be a fine thing to die for the expansion of territory. But today, war destroys what it claims to foster. It isn't a matter now of sacrificing a little blood to invigorate the whole race. Now that it is waged with the airplane and with poison gas, war is nothing more than a bloody surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it comes back to the discussion that we had. And now back to the Polish workers. I know that there's just so many great quotes towards the end.
Yeah, like
Only
as you said,
then,
like he really like hammers home all those points
yeah.
he wants to make.
So, any of our viewers, if you want to read this book and you don't have much time, just read last 10 pages. And you're going to be left impressed. But anyways, only then will we live in peace and die in peace. For what gives meaning to life gives meaning to death.
Yeah.
Sounds like if I was preaching.
Like that's the thing I wanted to talk about the whole time. Like he often preaches, but it doesn't feel preachy. You know what I mean?
To me, it did.
But like not in a negative way.
No, not in a negative way. I could just imagine him standing
Because like,
somewhere on a
preachy,
podium.
like as an adjective, has a very negative connotation, doesn't it? Like
Not,
if you say somebody's being preachy.
yeah, that one, yeah. If you're being, but if he's preaching, like, anyways, he's sharing his thoughts in this very motivating and encouraging way, and and it's really just a lot of quotes towards the end, just like these lines that you could just like write on your wall and keep them there.
Yeah.
You know? And I like that. And obviously the most favorite quote towards the end. Yeah. He's talking about the Polish child that he sees on the train. And he says, "What torments me is not these hollows, nor these humps, nor this ugliness." He's talking about this life situation of those people, but a part of the murder of Mozart in every one of these men. And this is such a powerful sentence. He's basically saying, if you go to a hospital and you go to the section where children are born, or whatever children are born, and then you look at 50 babies lying there, you cannot distinguish them. You know, they're basically all the same. They have their life in front of them. Well, I'm going to get into the deeper thought that I have. And in each of them, there's a Mozart. There's someone who could be super creative, someone who could change the world, someone who could do something good, become a surgeon, become a scientist, someone who could write an amazing song that's going to become a hit. And, and you cannot really choose which child that is because they're so the same and they're all human beings and creative from the beginning. And now I'm getting to the deeper thought that I had, and now I'm like chronologically trying to guide you through my reasoning of this.
Like just for the audience, like he's talking about the soul-crushing nature of modern life again, especially of modern life in the urban centers, and that this kind of life will destroy that Mozart within all these children.
Yes. And now I remembered that's a lie that we tell ourselves when we look at all these children, all these babies that are the same. They are not. In reality, their destinies are quite to a great extent predetermined by the background they were born into, the place where they were born into, whether they will be able to become Mozart, whether they will have the equipment to do so. And I think this is what he's trying to, say, that you have these forces of the urban life, let's say, or to some extent modernization that crushes, that makes the murder of that creativity with those babies.
Yeah.
That's your reaction?
No, like I think it's those forces, and like in that special context, it's like those economic currents which forced the Polish workers away. I don't know if they were expelled because the government wants to get rid of the migrants to have more jobs for French people, or if like
Sounds familiar.
or if where they were employed, if the thing, like I think it was a mine, closed down and they had to leave because of that reason. Um, like whatever it is, I think he talks about like those cruelties of modernity, like this destroying
Yeah.
those sparks
Yeah.
of greatness in a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add. I think I'm done with all my thoughts.
And yeah, I think it's not only those extreme circumstances, but he generally like criticizes a lot the life, like especially the urban life in those modern times. And what I find really interesting is basically like you told me, I remember when we briefly talked about the book yesterday, um, you told me you really liked the last sentence. And I was like, oh, only the spirit breathing upon the clay can create man. And you were like, no, the second to last then.
Yeah.
And like when I reread the book now, the last 2 days, I found it quite interesting because I discovered for the first time that this idea of the clay is framing the whole book. He uses it in the very beginning to talk about a bureaucrat, where the clay has hardened. So he talks about him basically as a victim of this very monotonous, spirit crushing modern life, where the clay has hardened, where he can't create anything great anymore, where he can't achieve anything great anymore, where he's stuck in that state. And in the end, he ends this whole book with only the spirit. Wait, now.
Only the spirit breathing upon the clay can create man.
Okay, now you read it first.
I understood it in a very Christian way of the creation of Adam.
No, I think it isn't meant in that way at all. I think it's about the human spirit.
Okay.
Like, it's more about our own divinity than anything which is concerned with religion, you know? And yeah, like this statement, like the spirit, and I think the spirit which can then shape the clay and which can form it in a desirable way where the true potential can be used by that individual, that can create man, which is here capsulized. And I think it probably stands for like a man, but also humanity as a whole. Yeah, and I think that's yeah, quite powerful, like that this human spirit can create true humanity.
Yeah.
Through shaping the clay in the right way and not.
It's very positive towards the end.
And
like the last sentence
drying up.
really
Right?
breathes positive outlook. I think that there's always a possibility, despite all the things that he criticizes.
Yeah. No, in general, I think this book promotes a really positive outlook on life
and simplicity.
Yeah.
So, what do you think we can learn from the book right now in 2021? In a world where all of us are closed in their home, most of the people are around the earth, where the end seems to be still far, where traveling is almost impossible. Going on a desert, cannot happen. So what do you think? I took it as a lesson to the life that will come after, and it will come after, and it will be different than it was before. It will definitely be different. And make no mistake, I think it's a big illusion to think that the way we lived is going to be the same when this pandemic ends. Yeah, so how do you think the book can help us now?
I think in general it's a great book to lift up your spirits in times where you need it. It is very helpful, and it encourages us all to build something. Like for him, what he was doing was writing books and conquering new frontiers. And that's not the way everybody has to build something, the way everybody has to contribute their stone to the shared world we are building for all of humanity. But I think he encourages all of us to be builders, to be gardeners, to do something for life, for the greater good of humanity, and to acknowledge the shared brotherhood and sisterhood of all humans on this planet. Yeah, and he manages to get those points across in a very, I know that it appears as like very simple truths when you read it.
Yeah.
So
it's
I think
easy
he
to read and
makes
easy
those
to understand.
points in a great way. What?
It's easy to read and easy to understand, I think.
And it's easy to believe when he says those words.
Yeah, because he has stories to prove them.
Yeah. So in general, I think that the message is to be human with other humans and to form the clay.
Now you are preaching.
But no,
but it's a great. I'm gonna sign this. I'm gonna sign under this. This is great. I have nothing else to say.
Okay.
What's your? Should we say a rating of the book?
Like for me, like it would definitely be a 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Oh my god, you're so generous.
No, like I think there were like slightly weaker parts in the book that were not as good as, for example, Man in the Desert and At the Heart of the Desert. But I also liked, or Comrades. I also really liked Comrades. But I think every part of the book was at least really well written. And maybe another reader would really appreciate Oasis, for example. I think there's probably a type of reader who would really appreciate that.
It's very subjective, yes.
And like a lot of those chapters were just really, really good in my opinion. And the other ones were maybe not outstanding, but super solid.
Yeah.
It would be nothing where, for example, like I think there are some books that have really good parts, but then you have like parts that are just boring and which you basically want to skip, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I never had this with this book.
Yeah.
I could appreciate every word which was written there. And
well, if the book was like 300 pages, then I think there would be some fillers. But since it's only like 100,
he didn't do that. You know, he focused on the important part.
The substance, yeah, on the core.
And he like it's like his sense of perfection when you can't take anything away anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I would say it's one of the best books I've ever read.
Yeah, for me it's like 4.5, just to save those 5 out of 5 for something even better.
If you had to give full stars, would it be 4 or 5?
I would give it 4.
Okay.
But that's a very hard choice because I think I'm just very careful with giving 5 out of 5 because there would just need to be a bomb that I would read, and this was a bomb. But I think I read books that were 5 out of 5, and I like generally I prefer book not prefer, but I would give a book 5 out of 5, and there were some that I read like that just had that emotional impact on me all the time throughout the book. And in this book, I had that, but not 90% of the time, maybe like 85. And I think this is
Okay. I see that you're very harsh. Judge.
Yes, I have very high standards, I think, in this, and it's always so difficult to say it's 3, 4, 2, 1, 5. So I think I would really give it 4.5. You know, like because 4.5 for sure. I'm preserving the 5. So should we end this?
Sure.
Okay, so thank you for joining us on this amazing journey with this book that's been by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Do you want to read it in your French?
I already did.
Okay, go again.
Okay. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's Wind, Sand, and Stars.
Yes, so if you liked it, smash the like button down below or consider subscribing to our channel. We will be back with more content. Take care, people. Stay safe.